L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. First of all, we'll start with a, this is my favorite Elul Nigun actually, Bavitch Nigun, Ledodi, maybe you know it, okay? Ani Ledodi, V'dodi li, 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 Ani Ledodi, V'dodi li. Everyone has a copy? Okay. Your kids come home yet? Start singing Hamelech Basadeh, Hamel. Anyone, your kids? Like Liba, who just started Mechina, Basima, kind of comes home from Chaim, and she's like, Abba, listen, Hamelech Basadeh, Hamelech Basadeh. So first, everyone knows that nigun is originally Enkel, okay? No, only about 20 years after the nigun was written, someone decided it would be good to put those two words on that nigun. Hamelech Basadeh, the king is in the field. And everyone knows, like, Hamelech Basadeh. It's been a while since I've been this excited to learn something. Honestly, I got this hisarus, this awakening again for this. And I haven't learned this in a while, but I also find it to be so bashert that we're starting to learn this now, because tonight is morning, Jerry. Tonight's the Yortzeit of Sholem Brat. Sholem ben Yosef Yikusi al-Zusha. And Sholem tested me on this mimer. I wasn't a student, I was more chaver, but one Elul, it was the Elul right before I got engaged. We got engaged in Elul, so Bina and I. That Elul, I was like, okay, Elul, I gotta get my Elul on, I gotta get my game on. And I was learning in the mornings by there in Simchat Shlomo, and he tested me on this mimer, and it was such a special moment in French in our chaveris. And he lived this mimer. He lived all the Torahs of the Alter Rebbe. Are the Tanya stuff online? This is Tanya Shirim also on the YouTube. The Parsha ones are, but he taught Tanya every single morning. Anyway, I would love to learn this Leilui Nishmaso, and to jump right into it. There's a lot of Hakdamas. This is a mimer. Now we can start. This means correct. Don't freak out, Yosef. That's basically a simon every year when the cough begins. Yosef can tell, anyone can tell you when the cough kind of starts, then you know everything else will lista there. Boker tov. Hey, shalom aleichem. Are there any more? Yeah, please. Yes. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Everyone met our Pomona import? Yeah, did you meet the Pomona import yet? Okay, Bruchim Habayim, welcome, brother. I'm so happy you're here. I was with your Rebbetzin learning yesterday. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Awesome. Okay, this is a mimer of the Alter Rebbe given in 1797. In Lubavitch, they have the documentation is phenomenal. Everything is documented so beautifully as to who said what, when they said what. Everything okay?
Yeah, I did. This glass is still clean. I thought it was open.
Oh.
clarity.
So that's the clarity. In Lubavitch, the glass is so clean. You think your heart's wide open. It's true. Anyway, this mimer is brought down in 1797. The Alter Rebbe said this in Shabbos Mevarchim, Chodesh Elul, 1797. And in the recent years, both for Tanya and for a bunch of other ma'amarim, this chevra put out the most, in my opinion, comprehensive and clear perush for the Alter Rebbe's Torah. It changed the learning of Tanya, and it also took ma'amarim of the Alter Rebbe are generally very difficult. Like for instance, it comes from these svarim. Just to explain a little bit. These svarim, Likutei Torah and Torah Or, these are the svarim of the Alter Rebbe. These are ma'amarim of the Alter Rebbe. They're pretty intense. They're beautiful. They're wondrous, but they're pretty difficult. So in this Chassidus Mevaeres and on Moadim, I highly recommend. Now they have on a bunch of them, but they took specific ma'amarim of the Alter Rebbe, and they mamish knocked it down, like shlav by shlav, to get fundamental concepts of Chassidus, of the Tanya specifically, in a very, very what's called Ofen HaMiskabel. Chasdei Hashem, Reb David Aharon's been opening the daily gates with the Alter Rebbe's fire, and I definitely feel that in the schus of that learning will continue to flow through with the Alter Rebbe in this learning, and who knows, maybe we'll learn all year these ma'amarim, but definitely in Elul. Ani ledodi vedodi li, hamelech basada. Let's go right inside to look at what's going on.
The concept of hamelech basada came through
A mashal of the Alter Rebbe. It's pretty. It's a mashal that the Alter Rebbe brings down. Al derech mashal. But he's going to explain. Listen, the Alter Rebbe is saying nothing came from him. He would never attribute anything to himself. So we're going to see where all these concepts have been coming from, and it'll put Elul in a very, very clear manner. If it hasn't happened, what is it today? Tet, right? Today's also the Yotzet of Tzedek Cohen of Lublin. I want to mention, and again, Elenu. I have a Chabadnik friend who became a diehard Reb Tzedek Chassid, and he's actually there right now. I asked him to have us all in mind. He's by the cave. He went to Reb Tzedek. Reb Asi Spiegel, so he has all our chavra in mind as well. We're starting with the women this week. Thursday mornings we're learning Reb Tzadok this year. So a lot of his chachas. It's very exciting. It's very special. Let's go inside. Ani ledodi vedodi li. Rashi Tevus Elul. That's the most famous Rashi Tevus out of all the Rashi Tevus. Rashi Tevus Elul. Now, you'll see the top of the page is the actual text of the Alter Rebbe. The bottom is the commentary. We're not going to do every piece of the commentary. We'll do it when we feel like it's needed to sharpen something. But please don't be embarrassed if there's questions you have. This is a little bit of a newer language for some of you. If there's something that's not barur, please take your time, okay? But we're not rushing. We're not trying to rush anything. We're trying to.
Is also from the Alter Rebbe?
No, the commentary is by this machon, by this what do you call it, machon? Institute. Yes, that has been taking the writings and chopping it off one by one. The top is the Alter Rebbe's words. Okay. Ani ledodi vedodi li rashi tevus Elul. Va'inyan ki be'elul matchil b'vchinas ani ledodi. Dahainu b'chinas is arusa dilatata. Ad Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim. Shehem bechinas hamshachos elokusa yisbarach lemata bivchinas hisgalus, kmo shekosuv smolo tachas leroshi v'yamino techapkeni. Stop. Ha'inyan, again, what begins in Elul? What's Ani Ledodi? If we had to do a movement, what would it look like? Like, what would the illustration look like? Ani Ledodi v'dodi li. Where's the arrow pointing? Right. And then v'dodi li. Yafer. Now there's another pasuk in Shir HaShirim that says the exact opposite. What's the other pasuk in Shir HaShirim? Yes, good morning. Dodi li v'ani lo. You ever heard that pasuk in Shir HaShirim? Dodi li v'ani lo. That's the opposite. Ani 'Vedodi li. This is beautiful. In the beginning of Elul, what begins? Is arusa dilatata. You've heard this concept before. That means an awakening from below. That's what begins. Ani ledodi is an awakening from below. It aruta, hit orerut, the beginning of Chodesh Elul. Ani ledodi is a is arusa dilatata. Till when? Ad Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim. Till Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's Ani ledodi. I am to my beloved. I'm awakening from below some love. Then till Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, because what happens Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? Hem bechinas hamshachas elukoso yisbarach lemata, bivchinat hitgalut. On Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we have what's called hitgalut. What's hitgalut? Revelation. Straight on. There's a revelation that takes place in the world, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. When a revelation happens from above, what's that called? That's called hamshacha. That's drawing down. That's isarusa dile'ela. That's an awakening that's coming from above, being drawn down to the bottom. So our imagery for the end of the year and the beginning of the year is like this. There are 30 days, and it could also be 40 days because the 10 days are part of the tshuva as well of Ani Ledodi in a certain way. But here we're going to see that really it's 30 days of upwards. Ani Ledodi. Then comes a revelation. Boom. Hayom haras olam. Tkiyah shofar. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. New world. There's a hitgalut. There's a revelation. When that revelation happens, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that's the Dodi Li starts coming down.
Any connection to Dr. Vino's dream of the ladder and up and down and malachim?
I'm sure. I mean, it's a very, like, mamash. B'nei malachim elokim olim v'yordim bo. Betach.
David was teaching in Tanya this idea also of latata, and I guess it's also like Lamala, the tzaddik, he gets a certain kind of like overroot that comes from above, and like guys like do tshuva, we're able to kind of do something from like down here that maybe he can't do. But like, is it the same meaning? Sometimes we get this root from down below, which is what's happening now, and then sometimes there's this root from Lamala.
The Yitorut milamala is going to happen mimela. The question is, how much are you going to feel it? Rosh Hashanah is going to come. The new year, there's going to be ischachus, there's going to be isayros, there's going to be isgalus, there's going to be a revelation. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. The question is, how much is it going to mashpia on my life? That's what these 30 days are of the avodah of Ani Ledodi, so that Dodi Li actually affects me. You understand? Like, people eventually will get married. The question is, what was their hachana to get married? Right? Sfiras Omer, Shavuos, it's basically the same thing. Sfiras Omer, what would you say? Isarusa dilatata every single night. Then Shavuos comes, bringing down a Torah. There's a Hizgalus, but what is it? It only means as much to me in accordance with what was my Elu. In this context, what was my Elu like? What was my dilatata like? The Seder so far? Also, David Aaron, pour it out when you see the chiburim. Like, no, this chabura is not, you understand what I'm saying? Like, Mamed, this is all mishpacha here. Bring it down, okay? Now, he says over here, K'moshe Kosov, you see in the third line, Smolo tachas leroshi v'yamino techabkeni. That's a pasuk from Shir Hashirim. Smolo tachat leroshi, the left side is beneath the head, v'yamino techabkeni, and the right side will come and give me a hug. Let's look at the Perush. You see on the bottom, on the left column, the words K'moshe Katuv Smolo Tachat Leroshi V'Yamino Techabkeni, the middle of the left column in the Perush. Yachaverim? Gilui ha'elokus benefesh ha'adam b'chodesh Tishrei. This hisgalus, this revelation that happens in the soul of a person in the month of Tishrei, mito'ar b'katuv Smolo tachat leroshi v'yamino techabkeni. It's described in these words of from the left is coming from beneath my head, and the right is coming to hug me. Shehem shnei ofanim b'izgalus elokus. These are two manners of the revelation of godliness. Aleph, smolo tachas leroshi. Whenever it comes to left, you have to know this bichlal for all. That's why these are This is foundational concepts of Chassidus. Left side is attributed to Gevura, right? Smolo tachas leroshi, smol himidas hagvura v'hayira, hamizgale b'yom noraim. There's a Gevura that's revealed during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's Malchus, right? The Melech. A Melech is Mizgale, through his Gevura. And that's what we feel, this like charada, this.
Days of awe.
Huh?
Days of awe.
Days of awe, that's why it's called. Noraim, Pashat, right? V'yamino techabkeni, but then there's another thing that's called yamino techabkeni, and I love this because hu chesed ve'ava hamizgale b'chag HaSukkos. The right side has to do with love. Yamino techabkeni. Right? And that's chesed and ahava, which is revealed during Chag HaSukkot. So there's a bunch of revelations going on in Tishrei. It's all about Malchus. But there's Smolo, which is Gvura, that's going to happen Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And then Reb Shlomo said so beautifully, how do you know if you were forgiven on Yom Kippur? He said, if you walk into the sukkah and you feel that hug, then you know it was a good Yom Kippur, right? And I always thought that was his beautiful, cute vort, but and it is, but it's actually v'yamino techabkeni, how the way the Alter Rebbe is explaining, you go into the sukkah, it's makif, like a hug, completely surrounds you. These are the two ofanim of revelation, these are the two manners of revelation of godliness that's taking place during the month of Tishrei. Again, those are dependent on these days. Like what we just said right now is going to happen mimela. The question is, how much am I going to feel malchus through gvura, and how much am I going to, the awe, and how much am I going to feel walking into the sukkah and feeling the chibuk? That's Dodi Li. We're not there yet. We're in Ani Ledodi, but he's just laying it out. Back on top in the mimer, second to bottom line. Shemirosh Hashanah ad Yom Kippur hu bechinat smolo, bechinat yira. But from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the first 10 days of the year is like as the aspect of the left side, the yira. Lefi she'az uzman hisgalus malchusa yisborach. Because then is the time of the revelation of the kingdom of Hashem in the world. V'lachen korim lo hamelech. That's why, remember in Shemona Esrei, it's not Hakel HaKadosh, Melech HaKadosh. It's not Tzadkeinu Tzedek U'Mishpat. It's Amelech HaMishpat. Where else do we have this, by the way? And Shabbos. It's a very important one. I really, every year I get very excited about this one. On Shabbos of Aseret Simei Tshuva, there's also a change in a certain area of the davening. At night, where? In the Bracha Ma'in Sheva, right? So where was it? Magen Alos Bidvarim L'chaim Mimisim. HaMelech HaKadosh She'en Kamo. That one moment. HaMelech HaKadosh She'en Kamo. You ever see Hasidim walk around the Aseret Simei Tshuva and Rosh Hashanah? It's a different look. There's, you know how we laugh about when the chops are out, we lay low. Chops are I've never, especially like Chabadniks, maybe there's more of like this, more like Chaim Fabrengen vibe all year long. It's very interesting. Rosh Hashanah, it's the only Yantiv, only Shabbos Dika Yantiv, only day that Lubavitchers don't eat before davening or drink, because you don't put anything into your mouth before Tkiyas. It's a different thing. There's a Gilui Malchus going on in the world. It's Malchus, Melech, Yira, awe. Everything changes. Those are the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur where we refer to Hashem as the Melech. The Malchus is full on in the air, and it's more of a place of Yira. We relate to Malchus from a place of Yira.
But he's still close to us, he's saying.
Sorry?
The Alter Rebbe is saying that he's still close to us. That's when the...
It's a zman of his galus malchus yisbarach v'achen korim lo hamelech. Closeness, it's always closeness.
The change happens,
The shift, right? That shift comes from that. Really, the shift from relating to Hashem as a melech, not from awe to a place of awe, is really through the first tkiyah. When we speak about this every year, that what we call in Hebrew like the twilight zone, the ezora dimdumim, is when Rosh Hashanah comes in at night until Tkiyas Shofar. It's Yira V'Fachad. That's why in Breslev, and everyone knows, there's no talking. Everyone's in Tainis Dibur. First day Rosh Hashanah, no one talks. Because, huh?
At Kiot?
They don't talk till actually
Oh, yeah.
Leil. Yeah, they don't. It's not so hard because they're davening till 4 anyway. But but yeah, I remember my first Uman, my first Rosh Hashanah in Uman. It was 22 years ago, and I was by Reb Chaim Kramer's Yantiv table, and I didn't know about this, and there was no one, like, people went to ask to pass the fishes, and no one said anything. I had no idea, but no one spoke. Only Chaim.
I was so offended my first year when I was Brody, and he got me to go. I just made a layout, like, okay, like, you're like, oh, I'm gonna hang out with him. And I'm like, hey, like, I'm trying to talk. And I'm like,
What is this?
why do you do this?
He schlepped me out here. He wasn't even talking to me.
I'm out of here.
Malchus. It's Malchus. It's awe. It really is awe. We'll feel it to the extent of how we treat these days. It's not just there's these galus, but we're in Olam Asiyah. What are we doing in order for that awe to actually mashpia on us? Malchus. Okay.
It's interesting because I hearing this because I learned that what's the big gift of the 10 days? The big gift of these 10 days of doing tshuva is that the tshuva that all year long that we're doing out of fear, during those 10 days, Hashem gives us this unbelievable gift that it's all considered out of love. But doesn't that sort of contradict?
No, see, that's the whole point, is that why should there be a stira when with awe and love? In the emes, in the pnimius of things, not only is it one, they're codependent on each other. But Bina and I were learning this the other week. Rav Kook's definition of yira is very beautiful. When you're really in love with someone, you're so in awe that chas v'shalom something would tamper with it.
There's no contradiction.
It's so lahefech. Not only is it no contradiction, it's a hashlama.
Interesting.
It mashlims it. I found that definition of Rav Kook about ahava and yira to be the most relatable one, because of anything in our life that we are in love with, and so there's got to be a sense of yira towards, if anyone or anything could tamper with this, I have such yira towards this
Great
love.
observation.
So that's kind of, so there's bichlal no contradiction, there's only ashlama. So again, we refer to Hashem during these 10 days as Melech, v'lachen kolin lo ha-melech, ki malchus cha kol olamim, because your kingdom is in all worlds. Perush, she'afilu ba'elomos ha-ne'elamim, even in the hidden worlds. What's that? The disappearing worlds, the hidden worlds. Tipol alem emas hamelech upachdo. That even in the higher worlds, it's. You guys have the next page? Yeah. Even in the higher worlds, there's an aim of a pachad falling on the creations from the melech. Go into the parish, please. It's the second parish on the page over there. Ki malchus malchus kolamim. Parish afilu b'alamas hamem tipol emas hamelech upachdo. Gilui malchuso yisbarach b'rosh Hashanah hu b'chol ha'olamos. When we say over here that God's kingdom reigns on all worlds, in the Sifrei Chassidus and Kabbalah, what are we referring to? The 4 worlds. Nachon, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah. Without getting too involved in the depths of it right now, but that's in all worlds. Like the nigun we've been singing. Lord, you fill all worlds and surround all worlds. And Lord, without you, there is no world at all. When you learn the Tanya, the way the Alter Rebbe built it up for us, it gives us a gisha and access to understand what part of us is connected to each world. But I always say like this, not understanding how that works it's not okay, but it's muvan. But it should humble you, knowing that this is not everything. What you see is not everything. There's a lot more going on. It humbles you, realizing you're not controlling everything. There's a lot more going on over here. So he says over here, the Gilui of Malchus of Hashem and Rosh Hashanah is in all worlds. Ki leshona katuv Malchus cha Malchus kol elamim. Ulefichach gam al haolamos hayoser elyonim hanikraim olamos ne'elamim. These higher worlds are called hidden worlds, disappearing, like Yosef was saying. Ne'elam. These are like disappearing worlds. Why are they called disappearing worlds? Why are they called hidden worlds? Mitzad godel harichuk beinenu uvein olamos elu. We're so distant from these worlds, so it's as if they're hidden. But even on them, my emunah tells me, tipol aleim emos hamelech upachda. When we say olam yitzira, when I say malchus kaim, and I hear the shofar blowing, at that moment, it's a link. It's 4 worlds getting zapped in one moment of malchus. That talk about awe, like put things into perspective. That's mamish, awesome. That's full of awe. That puts me in the right place. Now, since that happens, and in all worlds, there's a gilui of malchus that happens at Rosh Hashanah. Go back to the top, second line. Umizeh nimshach gam lemata al klalus nishmas Yisrael lekabel ol malchus shamayim alehem b'tiyeh yirasa al pneim kol hashana. Because that happens, there's a gilui of malchus, there's a revelation of malchus that happens in all worlds on Rosh Hashanah. That's what's called isarusa dile eila. You understand the difference? That's dile eila. That's happening up there. That's not my ani ledodi. That's dodili. That's happening up there. But what ends up happening is that there's a hamshacha. This comes down. There's a nimshach. This is drawn down on all of the neshamas of Am Yisrael. Kabel ol malchut shamayim on all of us and have yira on us. Kol hashana. What did he say? But what does this mean that it lasts all year long? If your Elul is Elul, and your Rosh Hashanah and Aseret Yom and Yom Kippur are K'moshe Tzarich, you should be sitting here today. What it tells Elul, still drawing from the Gilui Malchus that happened on Rosh Hashanah. Some of my friends have told me that, for instance, when they've been to Uman, and they were singing a certain nigun that they sing there on Rosh Hashanah, I think the person was saying to me, as the beautiful Breslover nigun, V'yeda kol povu ki ato peyolentoi v'yovin kol yitzur ki ato yitzarto v'yeda kol povu ki ato peyolentoi v'yovin kol yitzur ki ato yitzarto v'yeda kol povu ki ato peyolentoi v'yovin kol yitzur ki ato yitzarto V'yeda kol povu ki ato peyalentoi v'yovin kol yitzur ki ato yitzarto. Someone told me once, when we were singing it in the klois on Rosh Hashanah, I had that with me till just about Slichas. Why? How could it be? So it must be that this person's Elul, the Ani Ledodi, was on. Gilui Malchus was reigning in the world. At that moment, there was a hamshacha. There was a drawing down that came down accepted into the heart. And like he says, V'tiyeh yirasa al pneim kol hashana. Like if things work out, come on, like the way that they've been planned out to be, Rosh Hashanah lasts all year long, like we're set. Only problem is it doesn't usually work out like that, but that's another story. But in the Olamos Elyonim, that's what's happening. That's what's going on. Gilui Malchus so powerfully, and that's what's going on. Shaila is Efani. Elul puts me in the place of Efani the moment that Hamelech is screamed out. This week I had a Shaila on one of the Nigunim we put out on the Breslov album. I want to know the origins for the song. I wanted to know exactly where it was from because I heard a few different girsos. So I contacted Rebbe Moshe Binstock. You know who he is? He's the chazan in the klois. He's the chazan of Breslov. It's such a schus. You know him, Jay. I had such a yira just knowing that I'm in contact with the one is the shliach of Malchus on Rosh Hashanah. But you know, I grew up with a father, Baruch Hashem, that was a shliach tzibur of Malchus. Like my whole life, my father was chazan Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And I'm telling you, my father looked different, physically looked different. Till today, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. It looked different. I remember as a kid, there was a different thing going on. Different thing going on. I told you many times with my father. Remember the story one time? before my father went up to daven Rosh Hashanah. You know the story. One time I was a kid, I saw my father go up to the bima and look around.
Looking for the blind man on the street.
Kind of. One day we're going to find that, like, hey, he pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket and he looked at it and then he looked around the whole crowd. And then he started daven Hineni. So afterwards I asked my father, what did you look at? And he had just learned a Zamra. He learned Reish Pei Beis in Rabbi Nachman that speaks about the Chazan has to find the Nekudos Tovos in each person. So my father pulled it out of his pocket, and then he looked around everyone, and then he started Hineni. It's a different ballgame. And so when these moments are happening, there is a gilui, there's a hamshacha. There's a hamshacha. Something's being drawn down that can affect us the whole year. And it's not natural. Now look at the Alter Rebbe says, third line. Ki yiras Hashem ve'ahavaso eino asuya ve'natua belev ha'adam mikoach atzma. The love of Hashem, the awe of Hashem, and the love of Hashem is not naturally planted in the heart of man mikoach atzma, from himself. I don't naturally just have it. That's not the way the program works. There's something the Alter Rebbe speaks about in another mimer and in the Tanya, of course, about what's called ahava hamesuteres. That's the embedded love. But even the Alter Rebbe says that embedded love usually goes shluf, and we have to me'orer it with shachris. We have to wake it up. But here he's saying this love and awe that we're describing right now, it's not just there and planted and ready on call. Ki im mikoach ha'e'ara hanimshach alav milamala be'es v'uzman his galusa. This can be felt due to the enlightenment of the revelation that happens bizman of the hisgalus. Zot omeret, we're programmed with a certain chip. The chip is called a nefesh elokis. Okay? This nefesh elokis, generally speaking, in order to really reign over the nefesh bahamis, has to be in constant combat, like Yaakov and Esav. Okay? Like a warrior, all the time, in order to have their game on. The way the Alter Rebbe is saying it over here is a little bit different. Or the way that we're understanding the Alter Rebbe over here is a little bit different. He's saying that there's a moment of the year, there are moments in our life where there's such a hisgalus, there's such a hisarusa dile'ela, there's such an awakening from above, that if I just make sure that I'm present for it happening, then the game is on. And I'm in unison with the emes of the malchus of Hashem in this world. Dehainu b'Rosh Hashanah. When? That's Rosh Hashanah. Bechinas Yira. That's Rosh Hashanah, the aspect of Yira. And this, he says, is the Bechina of Dodi Li. This is what it means, Dodi Li. And Rosh Hashanah, finally, when do I feel the Dodi Li, the love is to me? With the Gilui Malchus in the world that happens on Rosh Hashanah. I'm tempted. I want to do one more perush over here. This is very important. You see where it says on the left column, Ki yiras Hashem ve'avasa eino asuya v'natua belev ha'adam mikoach atzmo ki mikoach hayar nimshach alav milamala. Listen to this. This perush is going to explain to us what the Alter Rebbe just meant by when he said that this love and awe is not something that's just fixed and planted in us. And just there, but it's waiting for moments of his galus or of revelation. V'tam adavar, shirak gilui malchusa yisborach b'Rosh Hashanah hu hachokek yiras Hashem belev adam lechol Hashanah kula. What's the reason that only the revelation of kingdom of Hashem on Rosh Hashanah, that's what carves yiras Hashem into our hearts for all the whole year long? Ki Adam eino yachol lintoa beliba bekoach atzma, ahavas Hashem veiros amitius. I can't on my own plant inside of me real love and awe of Hashem. That's not something I can do, that I can plant into me on my own. Now, why do you think that's why is that? Why can't I do that on my own?
Because I love things of this world.
Because I'm here. Yeah, because I love cake. No, that's like the deepest reason. Because I do love cake. So I can't plant something that has no shaykhus to the sitra achra of loving cake into me. It has to come from an isarusa de la'ela. It has to come from above. It has to be a yizgalus. Because I love cake.
And that's what happens in Rosh Hashanah. That's what's drawn down from the Malchus.
So from the Malchus, it's interesting because now I'm messed up because in Rosh Hashanah the whole thing is honey cake, right?
I literally was just thinking that. I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting honey cake everywhere.
Now I'm like,
I didn't want to say it.
According to Gedalia, stop with the games of the apple and the honey.
right. This is a very, very deep concept. On Rosh Hashanah, there's a gift that comes down to me that has nothing to do exactly with like the way I perceive goodness in the world, the way I perceive what's good for me or what's bad for me. It's malchus, it's awe. So you're done with the games. There are no games. Rosh Hashanah is no games. Ki adam eino yachol limtoa b'libo b'koach atmo ahavas Hashem v'yasam. Ela, when can this happen? Rak she'or Eloki me'ir v'kavua b'nafsho b'emes. Only when a godly light comes and shines and becomes embedded in a person's soul, be'emes. You see, Rosh Hashanah, you just be a kli. Don't go in with too many chachmas. Like you and I learn every year before Tkiyah Shofar, it's not, to blow the shofar even. Don't go in there with any of the chachmas. Something has to be done. It's called malchus. Now it's happening anyway. You want it to be in you. V'chmo be'ahava v'yira ledavar gashmi. Just like love and awe for something materialistic, something physical. Shelo yargish adam ahava le'ezeh davar or yira pachad mimeno ela kasher adavar lefanav. You only really love, or you're only really in awe of something when they or it is in front of you. That's when you're in awe of something, when it's in front of you. Im bekirum makom gashmi leneged einav hagashmi, whether it's physically very much closely in front of you, or al kor panim bekiruv makom ruchni, or whether something is spiritually in front of you. Shebemocho ve'enei sichlo yesh tzura brura shel hadavar hahu lechol pratav. What does it mean that something is close to you spiritually? That you're able to visualize the imagery of it as if it's an actual cup in front of you. You're visualizing and you're doing the imagery of elokus, of godliness. Ad dehave ki'ilu roes hadavar, until it's as if you're saying, wow, I actually see this. Raya zu hagashmis v'aruchnis hi hamolida ba'adam regesh balev. Re'iyah zu, this seeing, this visualization. That's why the Piasets there was so big on these things. The visualization of the thing that I'm desiring to be close to. The Alter Rebbe says that's what gives birth into our hearts to feel the closeness to something. Im li'iskarev el hadavar, which is ahava, to get close to it, because I love this. O li'israchik. Remember, one time I heard that as an eitzah from a big, I guess Mekubal, that if you want to be misrachik from yira, from a bad thing, visualize the moment after you do it, what may come into the world. That thing. For a moment after you do what you do, Rav Shlomo once said something many times. Listen to this beautiful thing he said. How do you know you're doing something holy? Is if you want to do this forever. If what you're doing, you want to do forever. How do you know if something that you're doing is not so holy? Is if you're really okay with whatever you're doing to end and move on to something else. Holiness is mamish, like that you want it to be in that state of mind forever. So here he's saying, how do I know that I want to get close to something or I want to stay far from something? This is the art of visualization. But what happens is something that's not in our world. You could think about it all day long, but it won't. Lo yolid benafsho regesh amiti elav. It's not necessarily going to produce within you a real sense of a feeling towards it, because it's too ne'elam. It's too, what's a better word for it? It's too Concealed, I guess, would be a proper word here. Yeah. Hidden, concealed. Bekach ba'avodas Hashem. This is what it. This is look. We're trying so hard, Chavra. We're trying so hard to do the right thing, to feel closeness and to know that what we're doing is right. We're trying so hard. Bekach ba'avodas Hashem. De'im ein gilui elukos benafsho b'mocho. If there's no revelation of godliness in your nefesh or your moach, ad asher ki'ilu ein avroos gilui eluko yisborach mamish. To the extent that your actual eyes see the revelation of godliness, you can't do this on your own. And the whatever awakening you are feeling doesn't really have a place to be miskayim, doesn't really become activated, doesn't really do anything. So is this depressing?
It is, because on one hand, if you don't play your cards right, sorry, you're out for the year. And I know that's not the case. We know that's not the case. I would maybe say it like this. I don't know if this is what he's saying. That yes, you're right, there's a chip, and the chip gets activated during Elul that comes from the Torah root that starts from down here.
No, the chip gets activated on Rosh Hashanah based on whatever. We didn't even get to Elul. We're just talking about what happens in Rosh Hashanah.
Based on the Torah root that happens from down here, but even more so from the other worlds above.
Correct.
It's coming down.
Correct.
And the question is, am I going to be able to do kindly? So if I don't play my cards right, am I out? I'm not out. This came down into the chip. It's like a virus in a good way that stays there latent until it has the ability to be activated. Any Torah roots that you're going to feel throughout the year, you have the ability, so to speak, to tap into it. Ideally, again, this is my own way I'm trying to make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, you want to do it now. This is the best bang for the buck. This is your best opportunity to go ahead about it.
Now I mean, hello?
Well,
Yeah.
wait. Hold on. Look. This is the look at the last word on the page in the text. Rak. Now turn the page. Shetzarich tchila leorer es ha'ava ve'ayira al yedei isarusa dilatata shehu be'elul. Again, he's saying everything we said over here right now it could work, but again, yeah.
What you do now.
Yes, it's you have to me'orer. We have to use every tool of activating awakenness for our love and awe of Hashem during the month of Elul in order for Tishrei to be Tishrei. But we're back to your problem, that it seems that if Elul wasn't Elul, I messed up, I don't have the whole year. Then there's...
Yeah, that's what it might sound like. And
right, but you know that that's not true.
That's right.
Right, so it's not depressing. I was asking depressing about a different question. My depressing question was about, does it depress you that because God is so concealed and hidden, that it's so rare to find a person that's able to visualize God to the extent that they feel like they mamish. Yeah, I mean, it's depressing because there was someone that actually wanted this more than anyone, and even he couldn't do it. Who's that? Moshe Rabbeinu. Ki lo irani adam v'chai. This is a game. This has been a game from the creation of the world. So is it depressing that I can't lean toa balev shli, that I can't plant this on my own?
No, because we're not supposed to.
Exactly. So it's not, we have to makabel that. That's anava. That's what I was saying before, is that this should be molid bittul. This recognition should give birth to bittul in our lives, realizing you're a bria, you like cake. This is how it's programmed. This is Pashut Me'od. This is how it was planned a long time ago.
So how does one visualize a Kodesh Baruch Hu?
I don't think he's saying here that you can. You can visualize midos that give birth to regesh and the lev, but the actual visualization of what we think we want the most, we would cease to exist if that happened to us. So the visualization method that he's speaking about over here, again, he didn't speak about it. It was brought down in the Perush. But in the Tanya itself, it speaks all about how do I molid midos, in my heart? How do I give birth to feelings of emotion for them to sprout forth and, grow in my heart? This is the avodah of every single day of the year, but bifrat b'chodesh Elul. Okay, a few more minutes, yeah? Yeah, Chevra, let's go a few more minutes. Let's finish Perek Aleph. V'hine noda. So what is it? What am I doing during Elul? V'hinei noda shebe'elul huzman izgalus yud gamidos harachmim. What do we know about Elul? That Elul is the time of the revelation of the 13 attributes of mercy. Go down to the Perush, right side on the column. Noda shechodesh Elul huzman izgalus yud gamidos harachmim. Shezoi hiskarvus HaKadosh Baruch Hu el Adam. 30 days. We know that Rachamim means God is coming close to man. He's having Rachmanis on me. He sees that I need help. Now we're getting to it. Mitzad Rachma v'chasad v'yizbarach kfi she'ivar lahalan, like we're going to learn in the next parak, inyana haruchani, the spiritual matter of Yizgalus Yud Yomidas Arachmim u'peulas ha'ba'avodas adam lekono. Ve'im ken, איך מתאים זה עם מה שנסבר לאל, שאלו הוא זמן איסרוסא דילתתא דווקא. אני לדודי. Well, we have a problem now. What's the problem?
How are you saying that it's...
How are you saying it's dilatata if it seems like the melech coming close to us is dilaela?
Is this connected to the other pasuk?
יכול להיות. חכה, could be. Could be. But you see the problem with this is, wait a second, HaMelech Basadeh, why am I saying it's all about Isarusa Dilatata? Who are we kidding? The king came to the field. Well, we're going to see in a second. He's having Rahmanis on me. You understand the question? Okay, back up in the top. Ulahavin zeh.
Because he's here that we have the ability to lay the roots to Ani Ledodi.
Yeah, you see, every time I'm able to do something, so Hashem in His infinite rachamim wants to make me feel good about my accomplishments. But then a second later, he winks at me, and we both realize I couldn't have done any of this if it wasn't for you, right? So we jumped way ahead right now, but that's what you do normally. But Enbaya, it's fine. It's fine. It's an Afghan thing. I know it's in the Afghan DNA to always go a bit more weiter. Ulahavinze, let's understand this. He asks a great question. If it's such an awesome time, Yiskarvus, Yud Yomidos Rachmim, what's the question? Lama hem yemot hachol ve'enam yom tov, kmo Shabbatot ve'yom tov. Why isn't Elul one long yantiv? Why isn't it like Shabbos? Because what happens on Shabbos and yantiv? His galus elokus bechinas he'aras elokusa yizbarach. Revelation of godliness that's more than the usual. And that's why you can't do melacha and all these other things. So if that's what's happening during the whole month of Elul, how come Elul isn't one long yantiv?
Why are we saying...
We raised it. We raised it. We referenced it in 2 weeks ago on Friday morning. Yeah, we referenced it.
How would we transform the Gashmis into the... If it's going to be removed from us, how would we do the hard work?
So that's one way of understanding that. I can't do it can't be Shabbos the whole month because I can't do the work I want to do on myself, which is only a result of the Rachamim that Hashem is coming down on me. So the way the Rachamim is coming down during the month of Elul is very unique than the whole year. It's a different form of Rachamim coming down into this world. Generally speaking, I feel like Shabbos and Yantiv, it's like, wow, you have such Rachmanis on me, you gave me this, Mekadesh HaShabbos, Yisrael V'Azmanim. The way it works in Elul is a little bit different.
And according to the Alter Rebbe, how come we're not saying HaMelech HaKadosh, HaMelech Mishpat from the beginning?
From the beginning, very good. No, that's easy. That's easy. Because the revelation of Malchus in its full form did not happen yet. Because he's not in the palace, he's in the Sada. That's already a long sikha of the Rebbe on your question. That's a very good question. You heard his question? That's a good one. Lichora, if HaMelech Basada, there's Melech everywhere, I should say HaMelech HaKadosh already, Rosh Chodesh Elul.
Or we should say Melech HaRachamim.
Oh, right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Very good. There should be references of, Nachon. Well, no. There are. Hashem kel rachum, meaning that's what slichas is. Yeah. You should know.
No, I know, but you only say it for a week. We say it.
So what do you, it's becoming a rivalry right now?
No.
No.
I'm just saying.
It's like, we Sfardim, we're doing this already the whole month. You guys have 1 week where you're tuning into the Rachmim. No, I ain't
because we have to keep the other place up. But,
yeah. Well, let's go back in the text again.
But we also say that during the year, when we say Tachana. Right? I'm saying, so
there's more Rachamim.
Exactly. There's always rachamim, But dafka now, it's even more up in the air. So let's read this paragraph. כי למה הם ימות החול, ואינם יום טוב כמו שבתות ויום טוב, שבהם התגלות אלוקות בחינת הערת אלוקות לא יתברך. That's the question. Why isn't it Shabbos and Yom Tov also should be through all of Elul? It's so holy. There's such malchut, rachmim. ובפרט בעת וזמן י"ג מידות, שהם הערס העליונות מאוד. Especially since these 13 attributes, which are the illumination of godliness in a very strong way, which eventually become fully revealed on Yom Kippur. It's like Yom Kippur is the pinnacle point of all this, of all this anticipation of mercy. And then on Yom Kippur we scream it over and over and over again. Something that we've been starting to do, like shtickle Yom Kippur, is all in Sephardic cases, all Elul. By us, a little bit later in Elul, but it's there. So why isn't that already? Why isn't it? If it's like a shtickle Yom Kippur, why don't I treat it like a Shabbos or a Yom Tov, where like
You don't say
the world is
Yom
different?
You don't say Agmidot on Yom. Well, you said on Yom Tov, I guess, before you open the room.
Yeah, you do on Yom Tov.
For not Shabbat.
Yeah, you do. By Sephardim don't.
Maran said that you shouldn't.
That you shouldn't. I have to say, like mamash, with such, who am I to ever say anything like this? But I always wondered the same thing.
What did you say that you don't want?
That they don't say Yud Gimel Milas Rachmim on Yom Tov.
Hanavai said that you should.
Not all Sephardim do that.
No, right.
Not all Sephardim do that, but it does. There's an Indian, nachon. Ubevadai, yesh hefresh gadol ben Yom Kippur ve'Elul. Okay, so obviously there's a big difference between Yom Kippur and Elul. Achine yuva, and we'll get, and the whole mimer will explain this, but we had to get to this morning. Achine yuvan al pi mashal. Now let's hear the mashal. Lemelech shekodem bo la'ir, before a king comes to the city, yotzin anshe ha'ir likrasa. I saw recently a picture. There's no picture of the Frierdiker Rebbe in Eretz Yisrael, but I saw a picture of the gathering at the train station to greet the Frierdiker Rebbe when he came to Eretz Yisrael in the summer of 1929. And it was such tshuka of like, because obviously this mashal is talking about before the king comes to the city, lahavdil, before a king comes to the city, you go out to go and greet him before he comes to the city, right? And where is the Kabbalah's panim? Umekablim panav basadeh. And you receive his face in the field. There's this stupid meme going around of a picture of Elvis at an airport, and everyone's writing Hamelech basadeh. You get it?
Yes.
Anyway, so you go out, before he comes to the city, to his palace. Ve'az, no one saw this? Ve'az.
Now I got the image.
Oh, now you got the image. Now, listen, whatever it takes to have these carvos of Ava and Yira. And you mekabel the panim basadeh. Ve'az resha'in, permitted. Kol mi shirotze letzet lagbil panav. Anyone can go. It's the field.
So that's the
It's hefker. Yeah. Anyone can. That's the rachamim. That's the rachamim. That's the ani ledodi. Here, I'm giving you a chance for ani ledodi. I'm coming out. We're going to meet each other there. I'm not in the palace yet. In the palace, you can't just walk in. In the palace, you can't just walk in the field. Hamelech basadeh. What's a sadeh? Hefker. It's
Peasants can come out.
And
everyone.
distance.
Yeah.
And distance.
Yeah. And distance. ואז רשאים כל מי שרוצה לצאת להגביל פניו, והוא מקבל את כולם בסבר פנים יפות, and he also receives everyone with beautiful face, ומראה פנים שוחקות לכולם, and he shows a happy face to everyone. I'm so happy to see you. ובלכתו העירה, and as he goes to the city, הרי הם הולכים אחריו, they follow him. ואחר כך, בבוא להיכל מלכוסו, but then when he walks into his chamber of kingdom, ein nichnasim ki'im bereshut. Now, you don't just walk in, only with permission. How is a person, based on what we learned, how is a person granted permission to walk into the Heichal of the Melech? So we haven't really learned the avoda of Elul yet, but it becomes clear to us that if
Through that.
that through it, I will be granted permission, Be'ezer Hashem, to come into the Heichal of HaMelech. Ve'av gamzot, but even then, when whoever is granted permission, ve'av gamzot hamuvcharim sheba'am b'yechidei sgula. It's really the chosen ones, the yechidei sgula are the ones that are chosen to get entry into there. Ve'kach ha'inyan al derech mashal b'chodesh Elul. This is what Elul is all about. Yotz'im lehakbil or panav yitbarach basadeh. This is it. Frame it. This is what Elul is. You're going for the Kabbalah's panim of the king that came to the field as he's on his way to go into his home, into his chamber. So the most beautiful thing is that when you hear someone sing Hamelech ba'amelech basadeh, now you see the origins of where this came from. And it should really fill you with a hisarus of tshuva, like, wait a second. If that's true, if that's the rachamim that's happening right now, I want to take advantage of it. And the Breslover is going to take this Torah and daven so hard over this and saying, please teach me what it means to take advantage of the fact that it was your choice. The Alter Rebbe said to me, it's your choice to come and meet me out in the field so that everyone can, a place where everyone can come and feel loved and feel welcomed. I know this is happening now. This is not the Gilui. This is not the revelation that's going to happen in 3 weeks. Bichlal, no.
King's destination.
No.
I think people think that.
Sorry?
I think people think that, like, the Melech Basadim, it's like, he's come, he's here, he's now. But it's really, I think you have to imagine the king, on a long journey in an entourage, and he's now working his way back to his palace, and he stops through outside of your city, and he allows even everybody to just come, but he's there to give you something, but then he's going to move to the palace, but he's coming through now, and he's present. We're going to see now, he's in plain clothes, right?
But that's the thing. Take advantage of what you're seeing of now. It's not yet. No, the Shabbos clothes are not on. Exactly, the Shabbos clothes aren't on because it's not Shabbos. It's not Yantiv yet. But take advantage of that rachamim. Take advantage of his choice to be misgale, to have the revelation of Elokus during this month, in this bechina through this mashal. So, most people really don't know that this inyan melech basadeh, this is where it comes from.
But can I add something?
No.
But it's to help us. It's rachamim that he's giving us to do the Yisurusa Delatata, to do that. The rachamim is that he gives you moments or experience of inspiration for you to do the hard work, because that still has to happen in Elul.
Rosh Hashanah, right.
Upward. This month is about. Right, this is
right.
Yet the revelation. That's the point. It's not Yantiv.
It's not Mal.
It's
not
giving you
right.
something to help you put that work in, and send that signal on high. Because when you send that signal on high, boy, is it going to come down.
Which would mean that there's no stira of isarusa dila'ela or dilatata on Elul now. You understand based on what you were saying. There's no stira. In general, by the way, the isarusa dila'elas are there to infuse isarusa dilatatas. That's bichlal how it works. There was only one time only, that there was absolutely, it seems to be no isarusa dilatata, and only isarusa dila'ela. When was that? Yeah. That was the only time. Because that was basically, if we would have continued where we were going one more second, we all know kaput. The whole story would have been over. But then we have to have 49 days of Isarusa Dilatata to understand what happened with the Dila'ela of Yitzias Mitzrayim. So a lot of, and we're going to see here too, a lot of the symmetry is always in the framework of Yitzias Mitzrayim. That is a bechina of it that happens also during Elul. I'm Yotzeh certain aspects of my Mitzrayim during Chodesh Elul. It's different than the avodah of Bir Chametz and everything. It's a little bit different because of Malchus and all the other different concepts, but there's a beautiful element of it. The main difference is that I can actually do avodah with Hashem while this is happening during this tkufa of Rachamim. So we should have Rachmanis on ourselves and take advantage of every moment you can learn, every moment of Yisbodidus, every moment of Yiskashrus, every moment of Tefillah. And Be'ez Hashem will continue. I'm so happy we started, and Be'ez Hashem will continue Perek Bet on Wednesday morning. Yishar Koach, everyone. Shkoyach. I'll make more copies, okay? This was just Perek Aleph, right? What was here? Mm-hmm. If you want to hold on to it, it's fine. Listen, this is available in all, kimat in all Sfarim that have Hasidic books also, not just in Heichal Menachem. This copy of Chassidim Word. Yeah, this is Kedai. Now they have a whole book of this on Shabbos. They have a whole book about a tefillah. They have a whole book over there, the Chassidut Mevu'eret ones. It's really, really special. Please. Shekoyach, everyone. Shekoyach. Ashreinu.